Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. In case you do not know, this is the second podcast I do. Yes, I do have another podcast, my main one being Mod Chat, where that one is a little bit more structured, and I do that at least once a month, where I kind of just talk about certain things in the modding realm that I find cool. Like I said, I do that at least once a month, but this here is my second podcast where I don't really have too much of a structure here, and I just talk about really whatever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't. I try and do my best to alternate it every other month. Last month, I did have an episode with Jason from Game Rave TV, and that was a super fun episode, super awesome one to do, and he was a great guest. So if you all have any interest in some of the obscure and really awesome original PlayStation stuff, I'd recommend checking him out on his channel and such, and even checking out that episode. But this is going to be a solo episode for August of 2022, and you know, I don't have all too many topics here, but it's all good. I'll see by the end how long or short this is, but there's just a few things I want to talk about on this. By the way, since I was saying this is a podcast and such, it is available on two different forms. First of all, it is available on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube channel, where there is just a cool looking visualizer with my channel art in the background. At least I feel like it's cool looking. And there is conversation in the comment section there as well too, so that's a nice little added bonus. But since this is a podcast, you can also look up Mario's Minute on your favorite podcasting app, host, platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. I know it's not available on all of the platforms, but it's available on most of them, I would say. Either way, let's go ahead and get into the first thing I was thinking about here. And you know, I think I just had this in my mind one day. It was like earlier this week, and I was like, you know, I'm just going to put this on the list here. And it is eBay. When it comes to eBay, just selling games on there is not very fun. Now, I think I've talked about it before, and I'm also one of those people where I don't mind shipping stuff out. I know a lot of people dread it. I think I've just done it so often that I have kind of a system in place now and everything, and so if I have a game or something that I have to ship out, I have a ton of the envelopes that I need. I know how to print off everything easily enough, tape it on there, pack it up. I've already weighed everything. I did a lot of the heavy lifting, so to speak, initially when I started selling part of my game collection. For anybody who might be a little bit alarmed with that, the games that I've been selling for probably just over a year now have all been games that are just sitting there, and they are either duplicates of games that I own, or sometimes even triplicates at times. So they're duplicates of games that I already own, or they are games that I know I will never, ever, ever play. And for anybody who also might be in the collector mindset and thinking, oh, well, don't sell some of your games because, you know, you're going to regret it and all that. There's games like, I don't know, Madden 2008. I'm never going to play that game. Ever. I'm never going to play it. I don't need it in my collection. I wouldn't want it in my collection, and I've never owned it, actually. But if I did have it, you'd be willing to bet that I would sell it, and I would not regret selling it. So just games like that, and that's kind of what it's been, the ones that I don't have duplicates of. It's like sports games that I've gotten, and typically not even sports games that I have outright gone out of my way to purchase. It's like I buy an Xbox 360 for $15 from a thrift store, and when I boot it up, I hit the eject button, and there is a basketball game sitting in the DVD drive. So it's been situations like that. There are, even when it comes to duplicates, there are sometimes I do want duplicates of games, but there's other times where I'm like, okay, I don't need 2 or 3 copies of this exact game. So what I'm saying is these are all just games that I have been meaning to get rid of, been meaning to sell, that I either don't want at all or don't need at all. So I've been, I think probably about a couple years ago, maybe even a bit longer than that, I kind of like separated these games out and I had them in a eventual for sale pile. Then I was just, there was a lot going on, plus a little bit of laziness as well too. So it got to the point that I didn't really end up listing them and such until just over a year ago. And I remember even when I did it, it took me probably about a work day, I would say. It took me 6, 7, 8 hours to do all this, because what I did was I got everything stacked, and I was just, in my basement. I had my laptop next to me, and what I did was I had them stacked, then I separated them out according to console and all that stuff, had them alphabetized, then I had a spreadsheet where I put in the games, the condition, I was weighing them, and then putting if they were listed, if they were sold, any of that stuff. Also kind of started getting some tentative numbers and such down. I was taking photos of all of them, and then I was going through the process of listing all of these games. And I did kind of inflate the prices a bit as well too, because it's like, well, I'm not really in a rush to get rid of these. Thankfully, I don't need the money right now, and I'd like to get as much as I can for these games. So at the time, it was really nice because eBay actually had a option where you can have it automatically drop the price as it's not selling. So you could enable that, and for example, I could put up a game for $25, and I do like a buy it now, and every few days, as it wouldn't sell, it would just drop the price by 5 or 10%. So it would bottom out at, I'm just making up these numbers, it might bottom out at like $14.99, which I was okay with. So even if I have to wait a few weeks and someone picks it up at $19, I'm okay with that. So I was selling, a good portion at the time, and it kind of comes in waves. Like, one of the things I've noticed is typically I sell games most of the time on like Thursdays or Fridays, and I'm pretty sure that's just because people are getting paid. They go on to eBay, they decide to pick up a game, so that's when I end up picking something up there, or I guess sell something there. Now, the nice thing is as well too, I'm selling really all disc-based games. Not selling anything cartridge-based. I don't really have any cartridge-based games to sell, but I also have a disc resurfacer as well too. So what I do is I make sure if there's like any scratches on the games or anything, if I'm just not really, I kind of put it, I don't want to sell something that I wouldn't really be happy with the condition of. Like, I do have games where, the cover art is missing, or the manual is missing, or the case isn't in the best condition, but I take good, detailed photos of everything, and I also clearly put it in the listing as well, too. So let's say if a case is broken, and if I ever send it to someone and they complain and say, well, the case is broken, I say, yeah, I put that in the listing in text, and I put it in 2 of the photos. You can clearly see right here, the game you got is in the exact condition that I described and displayed it. And it's not like I put it up in like brand new or even excellent condition. No, that's probably like acceptable condition to me. So that's usually how I do all of that. Now, what was going on with it? I ended up... Yeah, it was with disc resurfacers and such. Typically, I will look at my game discs, and if it's something I wouldn't really be happy with, if I paid for it and, I got it in this condition, I don't want to send it out like that. So I do have a bunch of these games where, since I've picked them up, from garage sales, thrift stores, and all that, many of them, the discs aren't in the best condition, but I can make them in much better shape when I put them through my disc resurfacer and, just clean them up real well, get rid of most of the scratches and all that, and I, talk about that as well, too. So typically when I do that, it might take me, 6, 8, 10 minutes per game to work on them, because I do take my time with them and I have to run them through the resurfacer many times. Now, for a bit, there was a ton of games that I was selling, and as I was kind of getting them out, it didn't really matter to me how much I was making, because many of them, like, the profit margins on them were pretty small, because you're selling it for $8, let's say, but then you have to pay for shipping, and then you have to pay for fees, and that's not even including, any money I might have spent on I guess printer toner, I guess. I'm getting granular here, but it's like toner, paper, tape, even, using my gas and my time to drive somewhere to drop it off and all that stuff. So typically I'd kind of have to measure all that out. But it was more just, I don't really care about this as long as I'm making a little bit of a profit on them. And I'm more just getting these out of the house, because it was like, it's not as much like I want to make a ton of money on these. Having the money would be nice, but it's also, they're not doing anything here. And if somebody else wants to buy this game for $8, $9, $10, then if they get some enjoyment out of it, awesome. So I haven't really had, all too many, bad customer dealings or anything. That's been fine. But I have said that I literally put it in here as eBay selling games sucks. Like, that's how I felt when I had put it up on there. Now, I do still have games that I'm going to be selling on there, but I think for me, I ended up feeling this a few months ago when, for a bit, I was really selling through a lot of it, and I'd say I've sold over half of the games that I wanted to, and now I just have, a good stack of games that's kind of sitting there, and occasionally one sells off, and then it's fine. I could probably sell them faster if I reduce the prices a little bit, but it's also one of those things, again, it's like, well, I'm okay with these prices, it's fine, and I'm also not in a rush to sell at all, so it's okay. If occasionally one of them sells for 15 bucks or whatever, that's okay. But I think I ended up hitting my limit a few months ago when it was very rare. Like, for a bit, I was regularly selling stuff. Like, every week I was sending stuff out. So to me, it was kind of just, it didn't make a difference what I was selling. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Even if I have to spend time, fixing up this disc or whatever, fine, it goes out, all good. But then when it was like weeks between games, I would say this, you feel a certain kind of way when, let's say, you haven't sold anything for a month and then one of your listings ends up selling. So I end up, printing out the label, I grab an envelope, I look at the disc, it is in not great shape, so I go to fix it, it's all fixed up, all good, I package it up, and then I look, I plug it into my spreadsheet, I say how much money I, accepted for the item, minus the fees, minus the shipping, and I kid you not, it's like the net profit is like 93 cents. And it's like, really? Okay, I haven't done this in like a month, and I spent 10 minutes doing this for what, 93 cents. Okay, and now I still have to go out at one point and drive this to a mailbox or something. So I think that's when I felt a certain way about it, and I believe that kind of coincided with a time around when USPS, because I ship out my games to USPS, it was when USPS also increased their prices a bit as well too, so it squeezed it even further. So at that point, it was like, I'm not even regularly selling these because don't get it twisted. It's not like I was just selling $8, $9, $10 games. I also had more expensive games, like $20, $30, $40 games that were selling, thankfully. So it kind of all melded. And again, even when I'm selling, let's say in 1 week, if I sell 4 or 5 games, it's like, okay, again, I'm more just trying to get them out the house, and I can kind of bundle some of them together and all that, so I can ship off 3 at once or what have you. So even if I'm making $1 or $2 on a game, it's fine. But what happened was, when I saw that, at the time, I reduced my sale collection even further, because I would say actually by that time, I probably sold about a third of what I was trying to sell. Then I looked at the rest of it, and I ended up carving out about half of that. So that's why I have, maybe from my original sale pile, I have maybe a third of what I want to get rid of, because about half of that, I looked at it and I just went through and I removed a bunch of my listings. Because I ended up calculating it, and for me, it got to the point, it was like, there has to be a minimum for me. I don't really want to feel this way again, because that was a little bit annoying, especially with the little bit of squeeze there in regards to shipping going up, and I'm sure fees have gone up a little bit as well too. But I looked at it, and I kind of had to make a rule for myself where it was, if I'm selling a disc-based game, I can't really sell anything under $8, or else it's not really worth it to me. And when it comes to games like in a DVD case or something, so they do have a little bit more weight to them, because I don't ship flat rate. I measure out how much these weigh, and then I put them into a padded envelope. And when it comes to games like that, I think I've kind of found it, I try and keep it at like minimum $10. So if it's a DVD case or something, like a PS2 game or an Xbox game, if it's under $10, I don't even sell on eBay. Because I had several games that I was selling for like $5.50, $6, something like that, or even like if it was like a cased game, like $7, let's say. And it doesn't sound like that much of a difference, but I kind of just had to see, what the worth was on there and stuff. And especially, I think, even to add insult to injury, when I was talking about that really cheap game, the one I made like 93 cents off of, or even less, it was like a $5 PlayStation game that was disc only. So that's why I was just like, this is definitely not worth it, even just to a point of getting it out the house at this point when it is that small of a margin. So what I did was, if you might be wondering, what did I do with that about third of games that I removed from the sale collection? So like I said, I looked at all of those. Pretty much my cutoff ended up being anything under $8 disc only. I removed anything under $10 with a case and such. I ended up removing, and I took all of that and I ended up selling it to a local store. There was a game shop that I've been going to, and I ended up just putting it all into a bag. I took it over there, and I think at the time with everything, and there was also some other stuff too that I didn't list on eBay that I just decided to throw in there as well too. And I think I ended up getting like $60 or something for what it was. And granted, a lot of the stuff was not worth all too much, but I'd say I'm, maybe not friends, but I'm pretty friendly with the owner of this store. And I was talking to him, and I said, it's just, I'm bringing this to you because, like, a lot of these, they aren't bad games by any means, but they're in different conditions and such, and it's just they're not worth all too much. But I was selling, just to let you know, I was actually selling these on eBay, and I just delisted all of these because it's simply not worth it. Like, even this game right here, I could sell this game for $6, but after fees, after shipping, and not even including my time or materials or anything, when I'm making like 92 cents or 87 cents from this game, it is not worth it at all. So even if you look at one of these games and you say, I can only give you $1 or $2, I'm like, you know what? That is more than I would get going through all the effort of selling this online. So yeah, I will take that. And I think that was kind of just my my thought process on there overall. So when it comes to games that are, worth a bit more on there, I do end up selling them on eBay, even though, they do take their cuts and all that, and that's the more annoying thing. And I think there's probably other services where you can, take less cuts, or even if you do something like Craigslist, it's fine. But I very much like how turnkey eBay is. It's really, you're paying the extra fees and all that you're paying for. You're really just paying for the convenience of the platform. Really, that's how it goes. Because I could, do something off of Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or what have you. But typically I've noticed that is not only you'll deal with a lot more just crap overall, more annoying customers, no-shows, but also you do have to be more active in your sales and replies and stuff. While as with eBay, 95% of my transactions I'm able to complete without ever talking to the customer or the seller, because just on both sides, if you're buying something, you find your item, you buy it, you pay the money, and then you wait for it to come. And then me as a seller, I see that the item is sold, it comes through, I do what I need to on my side, I send it off. So like I said, 95% of the time with my transactions on eBay, I never have any personal dealings with the seller. So I very much like the turnkey operation of that. But that's also kind of my heads up to you all as well too. I don't really see anything bad with selling things that you're not using. If you can get some extra income with that, that's fine as well too. But if it comes to eBay, where I'm sure there's people who are listening who are thinking of selling their games on there, just kind of price everything out. I'd recommend definitely doing a spreadsheet and just seeing how much you're wanting to get and such, because this isn't even including, there's some people who might say, hey, I spent $5 on this game, I want to get at least a $5 profit on there. But that wasn't me. On the games and stuff that I was selling, I was like, look, the money I spent on this is already spent. I'm not really caring to make it back. Like, it's all good. So there's going to be stuff I'm going to make a profit on. There's going to be stuff that I make a loss on. It's more in the current time, I want to make sure that when I sell something after all the shipping and fees, I am in the positive for it, and it's just getting some money back for stuff that I am not using so it can be used by someone else. That's really all that I was looking for there. But like I said, you might want to look into what your minimum is going to be. For me, with the way I ship out my stuff, the way I deal with everything, my minimums are, if it is a disc-only game, $8 at minimum. If it's a case-based game, $10 at minimum, and if it's going to be something that's going to sell lower than that, I just eventually stack it up into a pile and I sell it somewhere locally, because I'll repeat it again, even if I take it to a shop and they say I can only give you $1 for this game, that's probably 12 cents more than I would have made off eBay. So there, that's I don't really rant as much, but that is like the closest to a rant that I could get there, I suppose. So speaking of games, still on the gaming thing as well too, this is, I guess, with consoles or computers or what. You know what, this is just going to be the Steam Deck. I ended up finally getting one. I have my initial thoughts and impressions on the Steam Deck. I do think that I am going to make a more thorough video once I have more time with it, but so far, these have been my thoughts at the time I'm recording this, because I'm going to be recording this a bit earlier than I end up releasing this episode, but at the time I'm recording this, I've been using my Steam Deck for just over a week here. Now, my history with this, I suppose, I had seen news of this, and I remember when the announcement dropped, I was seeing Steam Deck, and I thought this was Stream Deck. So I was thinking that it was like the Steam Link, and I thought that this was going to be some new device for streaming that Steam was dropping. Then I saw it was the Steam Deck, and I saw that it was a handheld computer. That's what I'm calling it. So it seemed like a cool device, and I was especially shocked at the price. For me, in my opinion, I do know there's 3 tiers of it, but I call it a $400 computer, because when you get the other two, there's the 64 gig, the 256 gig, and the 512 gig models, and I believe, aside from obviously the storage on there, the storage being increased, and I think even in the 512 model, the SSD is a bit better, I believe, from what I understand. The 512 gigabyte model, it also has a bit of a different, I guess, screen cover, where it has an anti-glare cover, and it also has a different type of case on there. To me, those differences are a bit negligible, because the specs are the same. You're getting the same APU, you're getting the same amount of RAM and all of that. So when it comes to spec-wise, as opposed to, you know, aesthetics are going to be a little bit different, and of course the storage is going to be different, but the actual raw specs of the device, the 64 gig is going to be equivalent of the 512 gig. So that's why for me, I still look at it as a $400 machine. Now, for me, I end up getting the 512 gigabyte model, and I don't remember exactly when I pre-ordered this. Let me see when they came up. You're going to hear me type in a bit, but Steam Deck pre-orders start. Let's see when that happened. When was it even announced? Was this? No, it wasn't January. No, it looks like July 30th. Yeah, or actually July of last year, I want to say. That sounds about right. It looks like, yes, July 15th, 2021. That's when it was announced. So I knew, and I'm sure you all listening have known of this, but I've known many people who they were immediately trying to get their Steam Deck, and they were trying, and it was $5 down to pre-order it. Now, I didn't really buy into the hype until 2 or 3 days later, I want to say. It was about 2 days later. Honestly, I think it was maybe a little bit of peer pressure as well, too. In my Discord server, I was talking with several other friends on there, and they had all gotten their reserves, and they were all excited about it. And after maybe 2 or 3 days of seeing that, I was like, you know, this device seems kind of cool. I think I'm going to pre-order it. Because for me, it was very much, I'm going to pre-order it. All I have to do is pay $5 right now. And if I feel like canceling it before it comes out, I can cancel it, get my $5 back. Worst case scenario, if I end up paying the rest of the cost for this and I get it and I decide I don't want it, I can sell it off probably for a profit at that point. So that's what I end up doing. I will say I do very much like how their pre-order system was. This is what I wanted, what Valve did, where they said, hey, it's first come, first serve, $5 down. When your deck is ready, we will send you an email telling you to pay in the next 72 hours. And if you decide to pay, we'll send it to you. If you don't decide to pay, we will cancel your order. I very much like Valve doing that. That is, you're talking to someone who was struggling to get a PlayStation 5 and a Series X. Thankfully, not because of money, but just because I did not want to pay a scalper. I didn't want to go that route. And I just had to keep fighting these websites and all of this. This is how it should have been. This is what I like for hardware when it comes to this. And I would have loved if Microsoft and Sony, or even just other shops, would have done this, where they said, hey, you can pre-order a PlayStation 5 for even $100. Put $100 down, first come, first serve. You can pre-order a PS5, and when yours is ready, we'll let you know, and you can pay the rest of the money. It might be ready in 3 weeks. It might be ready in 12 months. But it's first come, first serve. I would have loved that. Because even with all of this, I didn't have to worry about scalpers. I didn't have to worry about any of the other trials and tribulations just to get one of these pieces of hardware. I didn't have to worry about any of that. It was really nice. So I even kind of I set it there and I forgot it. And let's see, it was announced July 15th. So I probably pre-ordered July 17th, July 18th of 2021. And it was 12 months later. Yeah, because in July, I ended up getting a email saying, hey, Steam Deck, yours is ready. And I was surprised. I was like, wait, I thought I'd be waiting a few more months. I was pretty patient with it. I was not prepared to get it at that point, but I paid off the rest of that. Then it ended up shipping out, and I picked it up, and I've been messing with it. I did get the 512 gigabyte model. I do know that Valve has seemed to be pretty open with people opening up their decks, modifying them, and Valve's stance on it is essentially, hey, this is an unsupported mod, do it at your own risk. It is possible to do, but we don't recommend it. But if you want to do it, here's how to do it. Just like running Windows on Steam Deck right now. Valve has come out and said, hey, we're still working right now on a official dual boot setup tool. It's not ready yet. If you want to install Windows, do so at your own risk. We don't really have any instructions for it, but here are drivers to get this all set up. So in the meantime with this as well too, I've had the last laptop I reviewed on this channel, which I'm sure most people have no idea about this, but I have a Lenovo Y5070. I ended up picking this up in 2014, I want to say. Yeah, 2014, I was still in college, and my old laptop was just going out on me, having every single issue possible, and I just wanted something meatier. So I ended up getting that laptop, and I'm still using that laptop. The only downside is it is showing its age, it is having issues, and I decided a few years ago, I'm not going to put any more money into the laptop. Any money that I would put into my current laptop, I would rather just save and put into purchasing a new laptop. The problem with that also being, I don't need a laptop these days anymore. I would say I haven't needed a laptop since 2017, just with the way my lifestyle is and how I use it and everything. Having a laptop on hand is nice, it is convenient, but do I need one? No. So that's why I kind of just gritted my teeth and dealt with the issues a little bit. Because even at times I looked at it and I was like, you know, I can get a really banging laptop which will do more than I need it to for $600, but I'm barely going to use the thing. So it kind of, I kept moving the goalposts. I was like, okay, this year I'll get one. Okay, maybe next year I'll get one. Okay, before I go on my next trip, I'll get one. And I just never ended up getting a new laptop. So then I had a little bit of an epiphany at one point. Several months ago, I was like, wait, I could run Windows on the Steam Deck. I'm sure some people are just like, oh, no. But look, it's not fully like that, right? So it kind of came to the point for me. I was like, you know, as opposed to getting a Steam Deck and a new laptop in the future, I think with my limited usage and the rare times that I do need a laptop, and I don't necessarily need one, but it would be nice to have one, I think I can just use the Steam Deck for what I need to. So when I end up purchasing the Steam Deck, I also ended up getting a little wireless Bluetooth keyboard. I got a Bluetooth mouse, and I also ended up picking up a USB-C dock that is not the official one from Valve, but it is designed for the Steam Deck. So you could like dock it in like a Switch, and you can pop it into power. You have HDMI out, you have Ethernet, and you have a few USB ports. Unfortunately, I can't talk about it that much because I ordered it, it sent out, and then it never arrived. And then Amazon ended up already like doing a reorder of it for me, but it's taking weeks to come out. I don't even know if I'm going to get it at this point because it keeps saying it's unavailable. But I have my order right there. It says I'm going to get it here soon, so we'll see how that goes. I'm not super worried about it, and also in the meantime, I actually remembered that I have a USB Type-C dock as well, too, that I can use in case I need to. Either way, that was one of the first things I did. So when I got my Steam Deck, I opened it up, I was checking it out, got it all set up and everything, super easy to set up there. Then I remembered that I had a 512 gigabyte micro SD card that I bought at one point just because it was a really good deal that I was using for nothing. So I ended up finding a tutorial and I got Windows 11 installed on there. I put it on the micro SD card, which I know is not the best, but it's kind of a thing of like, I don't really use it that much. It should be fine. And I don't want to, I very much want to have this segmented. So by that, I mean SteamOS, I believe in it. I use it. I love the idea behind it. It's worked very well for me. I'm only using that for games. That is it. I only use it for games. Only use it for games. Windows is going to be for everything except games. Now, funny enough, I even have like the Adobe suite I've installed on there. I haven't actually used it on it, but you know, I'll do some internet browsing on there. I'll do, if I have to like remote into my server, I use that. Spreadsheet work, I've done a little bit of that as well too, and it seemed to work pretty well for what I need it to. Like, I don't need anything super robust, but I just need it to not randomly blue screen on me. Like, my bar for having a Windows capable device is very low. I'm not sure if y'all realize that, but that's my barrier to entry and my bar, my expectation is very low when it comes to that. So I've had that. The Windows side, it seemed to work pretty well for me for the most part, although the only downside is there is a side effect where it seems like this is just how it is. There's no way around it really at the current time. If I just turn on my Steam Deck from cold boot and I don't do anything, it will automatically boot from the micro SD card and it boots into Windows 11. So in order for me to boot up SteamOS, every time I launch it from cold boot, I have to hold down the volume down button, which brings up the bootloader menu, and I have to select, or I guess, you know, the UEFI or the BIOS on there, whatever you want to call it. Then I have to select SteamOS, and it launches them there. Now, SteamOS has worked incredibly well for me. I've been playing PC games on there. I've also had a lot of fun with EmuDeck, which is awesome. EmuDeck, from what I understand, is not an actual application. It is just kind of a series of scripts and such, but you go to the website because there's no flat pack available yet, at least. You go to the website, you download this, you run it, and it just walks you through the process of what do you want to install, where do you want to install these to, what do you want to do, and it just downloads a ton of emulators and builds the direct folders onto your deck and everything, and then afterwards it tells you, hey, if you want to play PS2 games, you need to put the BIOS here. Hey, if you want to play Switch games, you need to put the keys and the firmware right here, and that's all there is to it. So I've had a really fun time using this as a emulator machine. I've been tweaking it quite a bit. I've been messing around with cheats on there as well too. I will say this is not a console to me. Let's keep that in mind. In my opinion, this is, I guess you can call it a consoleized computer, but this is still a computer. It is a handheld PC. That's what it is. With that being said, I don't really think this would be a console competitor, at least in my eyes. This here is definitely a competitor, however, for other handheld PCs. And that's actually been the thing that's attracted me to the Steam Deck as opposed to getting like the Neo or the GDP Win or even looking at any of those or GPD. I see, I don't even really, if people are like laughing at me not knowing the names, it's because I don't really pay attention to these other little computers because this is essentially the issue I've had with all of them prior to the Steam Deck, is that they seem to be really expensive for not the best performance. The support also seems to be spotty as well too on them. So that's why when I saw the Steam Deck and I was like, wait, this is going to be using SteamOS. It has, Proton is going to be on there. It's going to get even more support just because people love Steam. People are going to love the idea behind this. And it's really affordable at $400 for the base unit. Like, yeah, this is what I'm looking at here. So even if people show me other handheld computers like this and they have specs that blow the Steam Deck out of the water, they really don't impress me because I very much, excuse me, I look at it from a very much pessimistic point of view, and I'm like, well, how is it really going to perform? Well, that's kind of expensive for what you're getting. Well, how is the performance going to be a year from now? How is the support going to be a year from now? That's where I look at it, because I've seen a lot of these projects and these computers here just be really lacking in many of those regards. So the Steam Deck might be the first good one I've seen all around when it comes to barrier to entry of cost, when it comes to the specs, when it especially comes to support, because it's not only Valve is going to be supporting it incredibly well, and they have been, but the community as well too. And that's when you get really awesome projects like EmuDeck, for example, where it's designed specifically for the deck and it just does everything you need to when it comes to emulation on there. So that's what's really attracted me to it here, and I don't think this is going to be a console killer by any means. Now, if you're going to be messing with the emulation on there, even with that, it's going to, take specific people if you really want to go all in with that. And by that, I mean, it's nice to have it. Like, for example, I have some Game Boy Advance games on mine, but a lot of people, if they want to play a Game Boy Advance game portably, they would like to play on, the Game Boy Advance hardware, and they can, get a modified Game Boy Advance, get a flash cart, and have fun with that. And it's, that smaller form factor, it looks awesome. The Steam Deck is big. My first thoughts on this when I got it were, it's big, but also it's fast. I have also been shocked at just not only how quick and snappy it is, but even when it comes to download speeds, how incredibly blazing fast it is, partially with the SSD on there. There's literally been times where, for example, my connection, I have a gigabit internet connection, and there's been times where it's like, there was one night, I remember it was like one of the first nights I was using it, I was talking with my girlfriend, she was telling me something, and before she could start and finish a sentence, I had found a game that I was wanting to play. It was Fez. I found the game on my library, I hit download. The game started, finished downloading, and installed before she could finish her sentence. Granted, it's like a small game, it's like a 500 megabyte game, but I was just shocked at how lightning fast this thing was. So SteamOS, I'm loving it so far. I don't really have too many bad things to say about the Steam Deck. It's actually kind of reinvigorated playing some older stuff, especially playing on PC as well too. I'll get into the games that I've been playing as well, later on in here, but overall, I don't think the Steam Deck is for everyone, but I think if it's something that you're interested in, it's a really awesome device. It is not going to be a console equivalent, because it simply isn't. It is a consoleized handheld PC, meaning that even if you just decide to dedicate to only playing games and only staying in SteamOS, you are still going to have to go to desktop mode. Even if you don't want to do the emulation thing, if you're trying to be as, I guess, as PC and not politically correct, I mean like computer, if you're just trying to only play computer games on there, if all you're wanting to do is play games that are officially from Steam, that have been sanctioned by them, that are verified or at least playable on the Steam Deck, you're still going to have to do a few things in desktop mode. One of the examples being Prototype. The first Prototype game, I kept having issues with it locking up, and I ended up finding out, I looked it up, I found out that it doesn't work well with the latest version at the time of Proton, but it seems to work well with the latest version of Proton GE. So I ended up having to download another program, a Flatpak, which was, I don't remember the program's name, but it allows me to download and configure other versions of Proton. So I used it to download Proton GE like 6.5, Then I ended up enabling that on prototype. I had to reinstall the game at one point as well too, but now it's working beautifully. So there's still going to be tinkering that you have to do in that regard. Plus, I feel like the performance is going to get better on games and such, and the experience here. But keep in mind that not all games are going to run super well on this either. I've been playing Stray a little bit on it as well, and it doesn't stay. It simply does not stay at a consistent 60 frames per second. It does stutter a little bit as well too. So it's not like you just have this console-sized PC in the palm of your hands, quite literally, that is going to play everything perfectly at 60 frames per second. It's not going to. It really won't. There are, different things you can do. You can change configurations. You can modify the specs a little bit on there. There's other things that you're able to do to improve performance and improve your experience. But do keep in mind that you're not going to have like an effortless console experience. Like if you fire up a Switch or you fire up a PS5, you are going to have to do some tinkering. You are going to have to do Googling. You are going to have to go into desktop mode. So in that regard, it's not going to be for everyone. But if you understand that, and if you're kind of like me, where you're weird and you like doing stuff like that, as long as you understand those limitations, I think it's been a pretty awesome device so far. So those have been my initial thoughts on it. Now, let's see here. I'm still kind of talking about this. I'm going to flip it around a bit here, but I did want to talk about the games that I've been playing because it's a little bit of an offshoot with this as well, too. In regards to that, let me see. I did mention Stray, and I actually was playing this game. I talked about it in last month's episode with Game Rave TV, but since then, I was playing it on PS5. I now have it on PS5 and on PC, but I was playing this on PS5, and I loved this game so much that I beat it 3 times in a week. I ended up getting the platinum on this game as well too, which I'm not a trophy hunter, I'm not an achievement hunter anymore, but I love the game so much that I actually tried for the platinum and I got it. Safe to say, I absolutely love this game. It's probably been one of my favorite games that I have played this year, without a doubt. I can confidently say that. And if you see this game and you're interested in it, I would recommend checking it out. I do think that there's more that can be done with it. That's been some of the criticism behind it, where it's like, hey, it could be a little too wordy at times, or it would have been nice if there was more explained or a bit more described in the world. But it portrays cats pretty accurately. The mocap they've done with these cats is absolutely great, and plus it's just one of those games where it's fun. It's fun. I don't know how else to describe it. It's fun. It's a good game. And if I can enjoy playing the game that much, then any of the downsides don't really matter all that much to me. So I ended up playing that. I got the platinum on there. I've also been playing a lot of older games on the Steam Deck because I haven't really wanted to purchase anything new on there because I have a pretty good sized Steam library. Plus I've been playing around with EmuDeck. So let's see, I ended up actually finishing the game Loaded on the original PlayStation, which it has its faults and such, but dare I say, I know this is not really, people don't like this term because it's been overused, but Loaded is, I believe, legitimately a little bit of a hidden gem on the PS1 because it seems like it's one of those games that came out pretty early into the PS1's life cycle. It came out in 1995. It's not perfect, mind you, but it is. It's bloody, it's crazy, it's edgy. The soundtrack on it is awesome. Especially, I mean, if you just load it up with cheats, it's really fun to go through. It feels like a really early version of Hotline Miami, and I think that was a part of it too. I'm like, this feels like Hotline Miami on PS1, but like nobody ever talks about this game. And it's pretty affordable for the most part too. I think it's gone up a little bit in price, but like I remember when I got it when I was younger, I found it at a shop for like $6. Even the sequel, Reloaded, I've barely seen that anywhere. So I would say, I don't think that's rare, but it's quite an uncommon game. But that was pretty worthless as well too. Like, I've actually picked up 2 copies of it. I found a PAL copy of it at a store. I was shocked to see it there. I found it for like $4. This is years and years ago. Then I found an NTSC version of it, so don't have to, change the resolution or anything. I end up finding that years later, and I think I might have found that for like $6 or $8, something like that. Now, from what I understand, Reloaded is not as good as a sequel, but I will still play it because I want to play through that. The funny thing is, I was playing Loaded on the PS1. I had cheats on there. I was running through it, but I was playing it, of course, on Steam Deck, and I was playing with DuckStation, which is an awesome emulator that I've really wanted to get into trying. I do believe it's better and nicer than EPSXE. Like, DuckStation is the wave when it comes to emulating PS1 games. And I mean this as no disrespect to the emulator, but Loaded is, out of all the games I've played, it's been the only game I've played on DuckStation that has had major issues. Now, I'm also playing with widescreen hacks, where I'm not just stretching out the screen, but it essentially, it kind of adds in widescreen. It just kind of expands the sides of it so you're able to see more of what's going on. And you do run into some issues with that. For example, I was also playing Parasite Eve on there, and the collision that your character will have, like either like interacting with objects or going through doors and stuff, it's a little bit off. It just doesn't feel quite right. And I know that's because of the widescreen hacks, so I excuse that. Reloaded seems to run fine. Other games I've played seem to run fine, but this game Loaded, I noticed the resolution, not the resolution, but the performance was not the best. It did not stay at a consistent frame rate. And the FMVs were not playing properly at all. FMV playback was just completely messed up on this game. Now, music, because it's a CDDA, so it's, how do I say that? The music is not actually like in the game files. It is actual audio tracks on there, which there's some emulators that have issues reading that. DuckStation seemed to read it just fine with no issues, which was really awesome to experience because the music is a part of the experience. However, the issue that I was running into was, again, with the FMVs, at one point it was game breaking. There was one point where essentially what I would have to do is whenever an FMV would play, the sound was still going in the background, but it would kind of start looping, and the image would be frozen, or it would just very, very slowly refresh. So I'd have to go into the emulator settings, set it to fast forward, and just let the game fast forward until it got over this hump of a FMV. That worked for most of them, except there was one FMV, it got stuck at that point. I could not have the game progress any further. So what I had to do is I had to close out of my game, reopen it, reload my save, and whenever you load a save, the save picks up after an FMV, so you end up skipping that. So that was the only downside to it, and that is, out of all the games I've played on it, that is the only game I have had major issues with, which is excusable. Like, that's how it is for me. I'm not really sure how these can be fixed with DuckStation. I'm not even sure if it's just my exact configuration on it, because I'm playing DuckStation, on Linux and such through here. So maybe there's a little bit of an issue with that. I'm not 100% sure on there. But overall, it seemed to work pretty well for me. Like, it was still playable. I was able to play through the game. Plus, when I ended up finishing the game, I literally just looked up like loaded cutscenes on YouTube. Because the game is so early on, it came out in 1995, the entirety of the FMVs is like 2 minutes of the whole game. So I just watched a 2-minute video on YouTube that had every single FMV spliced into the same video. And then, I had my experience there. So I ended up finishing that. That was great. Like I said, I was playing through Parasite Eve, like poking at that. I've started playing Silent Hill 2, like I was dabbling in a little bit of that as well too, which I love that game, but I have the greatest hits version on PS2, so it has not only the updated code, but it also has the extra scenario with Maria on there. So I was playing through that a little bit. It plays beautiful. I think it's PCSX2, that's the emulator that's on there. Let me see, I'm actually gonna pull out my Steam Deck and see what else I was playing on here. I've also been playing some PSP games, so I've been poking at Infected. Another, dare I say, another PSP hidden gem, I feel like, where it's bloody, it's edgy, it's great, it's super fun, has an amazing soundtrack. I've been kind of in a like grimy bloody horror type mood, I guess. I'm not sure why, but that's kind of the games that I've been going through. I played a little bit of Nightmare Creatures 2. That was playing pretty well on there. The one Game Boy Advance game I was playing a bit of was Pinball of the Dead. Was having a lot of fun with that. Seemed to work pretty well from my experience on there. And I guess Xenogears, I was trying that out on, PS1, of course, and that seemed to work super well. Now, for actual PC games, again, that I was playing on the Steam Deck here, recently I've been playing, I just started, well, I guess restarted Condemned Criminal Origins. I've had this on PC for years, and the last time I played it, I was using a Logitech keyboard and mouse, and the reason why I say that is because it has such a weird issue where if you have a Logitech keyboard, a certain types of Logitech keyboards, and you have the hotkeys enabled on there, like macros for like playing music, back, forward, just also like sound, then a few minutes into the game, it ends up, even if you have like if you have multiple cores in your CPU, the game ends up falling back to playing on a single core, and the performance just tanks. It runs at like 6 frames per second all of a sudden. So I didn't have the best PC experience, but I've been playing it on Steam Deck, and it works perfectly well. 60 frames per second, it looks great, it runs really well. It's the best Condemned experience I've had, because I've played this game like 6 times through on the Xbox 360. I played it a bit through backwards compatibility on the Xbox One X at the time, and I got about halfway through it, and then I just kind of dropped it for whatever reason. But I've been enjoying that quite a bit on PC. Let's see, there was one other PC game I'm pretty sure I was playing on here. I'm just trying to look through my collection and see which one it was, because I've been guilty of, like I said, just I'm sure people can probably sympathize with it, which is like downloading and installing a bunch of games but not actually playing them. Prototype, like I said, I had mentioned that earlier. I was playing a bit of that, and Stray, I was experiencing that on there. So those have been, all the games I've really been playing. I've been jumping around a lot back and forth on here just because I've been wanting to test out stuff, and it's been exciting messing around with all this. But yeah, those are the games I've been playing. I guess the only other one I've been pretty consistently playing is, I still have my Switch. I still have it hooked up. I still use it. Admittedly, I haven't been playing it as much because, the Steam Deck is the, nice, flashy, fun thing I'm having, and I'm just having a ton of fun just going through the emulators on there. But I'm still playing Ring Fit Adventure. I try and play it 20, 30 minutes a day, Monday through Friday, and it's been going well. Let's see. I like to kind of, in these solo episodes here, not only talking about, the games I've been playing, but also I like to share a game store story or two if I can. So for anybody who does not know, I used to work at a local, like, small mom and pop video game store. I worked there when I was in high school. I worked there for just over 2 years. It was simultaneously like one of the best and one of the worst jobs I had. Best because, it was a fun. I loved the coworkers. I liked the environment. It was fun, but at the same time, there was also parts of the environment I didn't like, and it was still a services job, a public-facing job like that. So, funny enough, when I was working there, I actually didn't like video games as much, and I didn't play for really like a year and a half or almost 2 years. I didn't really start playing video games a bunch again until maybe a month or two before I ended up quitting, because I feel like maybe I could see the light at the end of the tunnel at that point. But let's see what I'm going to share here. I think there was I want to share a couple stories here. It's about one guy who, he was a regular there. He ended up being friends with the manager there, so he would come in. He would kind of just like loiter around a bunch as well too, but he was just... He was a friend too. He was a cool enough guy. He sometimes had a bit of an attitude problem, but at one point he also started working for the store as well too. Now he also had how do I say this politely? He had a bit of a hygiene and cleanliness problem as well too. So he knew about it. Pretty sure he knew about it. But there'd be times he didn't really wash his clothes, or he didn't really wash his body, or it was a mix of both. Some days it was worse than other days. I'm not really sure what was going on with it, but for the most part, it was pretty tolerable, I would say. At least for me, I was polite about it. But one thing that he did, this was before he became an employee there. He was a customer, and I guess before he started coming to us, he used to go to another video game store that my manager worked at prior. And that was kind of another funny thing too. My manager used to work at another shop. He was known there, and then when he started working at this shop, he ended up like accidentally bringing a whole lot of people with him. Not employees, I'm talking about customers, which was good for us because he was pretty much the one employee at this other store who was good, who was nice, who knew what they were talking about. All the other people really, like, who went to this other shop he used to work at did not like the owners, did not like the other employees there, but they liked my manager. So when they found out he started working at this other store, they lost a lot of foot traffic simply because of that. But either way, what this guy ended up doing, and the guy I'm talking about in general, let's call him Ryan, for example. So Ryan, before he ended up working with us, he would do a bit of a thing where whenever he needed a bit of money, he would sell something to us, of course. Like, that's fine. We had plenty of people like that. But he would also buy back the same items as well, too. So he did this with MP3 players. Sometimes he did this with, like, movies. He also did this with his consoles. Like, he regularly sold his Xbox 360 to us. Then he would, buy it back later on. And he was losing money on this. But, I mean, we didn't turn him away because it was business and he understood what he was doing. We actually had several people who were like this, not just him, but there's been other customers as well, where I remember there was like once where there was a guy who came in and he sold like 2 portable CD players, which is really odd because you got to realize this is back in like 2010 or so, when they were already on their way out. And I remember I gave my manager grief for this because it was like, why did you buy portable CD players? Why? Like, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why would you do this? Then a few weeks later, he ended up just kind of rubbing it in our faces and saying that he was smart about it, because he ended up buying these 2 portable CD players off this guy for like $1 each. And this same guy came back in later and bought back one of the CD players for like $8. So my manager was like, see, how is that stupid when we made a profit on this? Because I figured, if I give him $1 for this, we're going to make a profit on it eventually. And I sold it back to the same guy. So we had some people like that, but I know what Ryan would do was he had an MP3 player, and I think he sold this thing to us, at least 2 or 3 times. There was one time with a film. I don't remember what film it was, but he sent his wife to Walmart to pick up a new film that came out. I think it was Due Date. I think that's what it was. She went over to Walmart, and I guess he was like talking to her on the phone, like telling her where to find it and stuff, and she didn't really pay attention, but she bought the Blu-ray of it. Brings it home, and he's like, we don't have a Blu-ray player. We only have a DVD player because we have the 360. We don't have the PS3. Also, it was one of those where it was only a single Blu-ray. It wasn't like one of those combo packs that has the DVD and the Blu-ray and the digital version. So we had a copy of the DVD version came in, and he called us up at one point, and we just did a straight trade because it worked for us and it worked for him. So he came in, he sold us his Blu-ray copy, which was like brand new. He sold us a brand new like Blu-ray copy of this because it was open and stuff. So because it was open, he couldn't take it back to Walmart. He sold us the Blu-ray copy, and we just did like a straight exchange where we just, sold him the DVD version. But there was no money exchange just because we said, hey, we'll just do an even trade for you. And then it worked out for us because essentially we ended up paying for a used DVD version of it, which ended up getting us the Blu-ray of it, which we were able to sell for more money. So a lot of that would happen, and like I said, with game consoles, that happened as well too. I think at one point this was completely separate to the store, but there was somebody who ended up giving my manager a TV for free. And it was one of those giant TVs, like one of those like DLP screen TVs. Like it was flat screen, but it was really tall, really thick, really huge, and it was a projection type TV. You know what I mean? Hopefully. Just look up like DLP television and you'll see what I'm talking about. It was one of those huge TVs. And it's the type of TV where people were buying them in like the early to mid aughts. And they're the type of TVs where they were really cool at the time, but you cannot sell those things. You can barely even give them away because they are huge, they're bulky, they're heavy. This is not a standard CRT. Like CRTs I get. Like DLP televisions are the type of TVs where I know of several people like this. I've known of people who have bought DLP televisions, and when they sell their house, they leave the television in the house because they don't want to move it. I also know of people who their families have bought houses and their houses have come with DLPs because the previous owners did not want to move it out. Either way, my manager knew of someone who was kind of a regular in the store, and he had one of these. He was just trying to get rid of it, and he approached my manager. He was like, "Hey, look, I'll load it in my truck. I'll bring it. Like, do you want this? If you want it, I will take it out of my house. I will bring it to you in my truck, and I will give it to you. I don't want anything. I just want it gone." To which my manager, I think at the time he was living by himself, I think, and he had a house. So he was just like, "Yeah, sure, I have the space for it. Go ahead, bring it by." So that night he ended up getting this huge DLP television for free. Then he ended up selling it to I don't think we were co-workers at the time, but he was just, customer and friend. He ended up selling it to Ryan for like $100, something like that. So I don't even think my manager used it. I think he got it. He hooked it up to make sure it worked, and then him and Ryan talked about it, and then Ryan had to come out. I don't know how, because my manager had a truck too, so maybe he brought it with him, but either way, it ended up going to Ryan's house shortly afterwards, and my manager made $100, and he didn't have a DLP after that. The same thing kind of happened where I guess at one point, Ryan was wanting to get rid of it because he needed money, and he was trying to sell it back to my manager for like $200. And we talked about it, and we were just kind of laughing, and I was like, that's a bad deal, because it's like, you're telling me he took it to his house, he put hours on it, which it depreciates the projection on there, like the bulb in there, because if you use those TVs for long enough, the image starts to fade and fade and fade because the bulb in there has a finite amount of hours on it. I don't know how difficult it is to replace. I do know in high school, my friend, one of my friends growing up, he had a TV like that, and it didn't look good near the end, but apparently his family just finally buckled down. They replaced the bulb in there, and then it looked brand new again. So the point is, he brought it into his house, got it dirty, ended up putting a bunch of hours on it, and now he's wanting to take this now filthy TV, bring it into your place, and he wants more money for it. So I don't know what happened with the saga of the TV. Of course, my manager said no to that. But just things like that had happened. I think that was maybe the only time he was trying to Ryan was trying to make a profit off something. Although it was great. There was if you all remember, this was probably years ago I've shared this. Ryan was the person I worked with who, there was one time we had a bird in the store, and he had to take a towel and he had to corner this bird and put the towel over the bird and take it out. Like this bird was just like, its beak was like opening up. It looked like it was going to bite him. It looked mad. I was just like laughing on the side, and he was just telling me, he's like, "Dude, stop laughing. Stop. You're going to scare this thing away." So he was the same person there. But maybe like on a personal side, one of the cool things that Ryan did, because he's one of those people, he was not the nicest person, but I didn't take it too personally because he was like that with everyone. He kind of had an attitude with everyone, you know what I mean? But there was one time, I guess, it was, I think the store was open already. It's not that we were opening, it was open. I was inside, Ryan went outside for a smoke break. And then there was another person we knew who, he didn't work at the store, but he was just kind of, a mutual friend and a customer who, knew some of the employees there. So apparently he comes by and he sees me in the window. And at the time, I think I was like 16, 17, something like that. But he had the weirdest insult for me. This guy goes up to Ryan, and apparently he's just like, "Hey, who's the guy with all the hair in there?" Because I had kind of long hair at the time. And apparently Ryan stood up for me. He was just like, him? Yeah, that's, yeah, like, what about him? Like, what's the deal with him? And I guess this person was trying to like find something to, poke fun at me with. And he was kind of saying that because I was, much younger. I was like 17 at the time. But apparently Ryan told him, he's like, dude, don't make fun of him. Like, yeah, he's a teenager. He's 17, but he's actually a cool dude. Like, I work with him. I talk to him. He's a nice guy. And just because he's young, like, he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff about technology and video games and everything. Like, don't try to make fun of him. What are you doing? So apparently, props to Ryan. I always appreciated that. I think maybe the best part was too, when I found out about that, I was never offended by it. I always thought that compliment, like, not compliment, I always thought that complaint, that insult was funny, because I'm just like, how is that an insult? Okay. But it was funny because I found out about that. I went home that night and I was telling my mom about this, and she gave me a really weird look, and she's like, the guy who said that comment about you, is he bald? And I said, yes, he is. And she's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So there we go. I got made fun of for having hair by someone who didn't have hair. I don't know how else to say it. Either way, I think that's about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. We're clocking in at just over an hour. It's been a real good time hanging out with you all, talking and everything, and just I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. I hope you had fun listening to it if you're on YouTube watching it. And at the end of these episodes, I like to pick a keyword or a key phrase. And if you end up using this keyword or key phrase in a comment on the YouTube upload, I'll know that you've made it to the end. And if you're saying, well, I only listen to this, I'm not on YouTube, well, you can go ahead, come over to the YouTube channel, go to the upload for this episode of Mario's Minute, and use this word or phrase in the comments, and if you use it, I will know that you've made it to the end. Now, I think with all that talk on the last story, how about we use the word hair? If you use the word hair in your comment on the YouTube upload of this episode, I'll know that you've made it to the end. Do you like short hair? Do you prefer to have longer hair? Do you style your hair in any ways? Do you remember that story, The Tortoise and the Hare? I guess this can be two spellings. It could be like H-A-I-R and H-A-R-E, depending on what you want to do. But if you use the word hair in the comments on this YouTube upload, I'll know that you've made it to the end. Anyways, that's about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. Again, I really hope you all enjoyed listening to this. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was a fun time. And as I always say, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, I guess, if you're on YouTube. But until next month.